really excited to bring this week's special guest to you. I'm going to warn you, you know already, it's unscripted, uncut, unfiltered, and unedited, real raw conversations. This conversation, I think you're going to need Kleenex for. It's a really raw, this is a true example of what we believe in and having these raw, honest, real, unfiltered conversations. So, before I introduce our guest, do me a favor. If you are watching on social media, you're joining us for our interactive social media party on Facebook. Please share this out with your community right now. Like, go ahead, share it out. Comment, let us know you're here. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and then get your Kleenex and get ready. We're going to have a great time, but it's going to be an honest one. All right. So help me welcome our guest this week.
Heather Crabtree, former attorney and owner of an event planning company for 11 years, is now a business coach for visionary businesswomen. She helps women scale their online business with a membership, group program, or mastermind. She is the founder of Your Savvy Business Circle, a year-long coaching experience. She is also the host of the podcast, Your Savvy Business and Life with Heather Crabtree. At home, Heather is mama to 3 beautiful littles, wifey to her hunky hubby, lover of people, encourager, and optimist. She loves to share business tips, real-life mamahood, leadership advice, and bringing awareness to pediatric cancer.
All right, guys, you know how we do around here. Help me welcome our amazing guest, Mrs. Heather Crabtree.
Hello,
Hey!
everyone.
We can't hear you. There you go. We got you.
Oh gosh. Okay. Hello. Can you hear me now? Oh my goodness.
We can, yes, we can hear you perfectly. How are you?
I am. You know that introduction almost made me cry already. So hold on, everyone.
Listen, I'm telling people to have their Kleenex ready. I know better. Talk about the host not being prepared. I don't have Kleenex, but I do have this. So
I have no Kleenex, so it'll be interesting. Let's say
it is all good. The beauty, one of the beautiful things about this is that we truly are a family, right? And so it doesn't matter who you are, where you're tuning in from, whether this is your first time or you've been an OG since episode 1 when we aired and premiered on May 13th. We truly have an incredible community that feels so much like family. And so you are safe. We love you. We are embracing you. Like, I'm already getting emotional. I don't even know why I put these eyelashes on. Like, after I got them on, I was just like,
I didn't even go there.
I don't even know why I did this. So if you see me peel them off mid broadcast, it is what it is.
Yes.
But we have so many people here who are excited to hear from you. So we are going to cut to the chase. I'm going to ask you some questions and I'm going to shut up and we're going to dive right in. All right. So today you are a powerhouse, well-renowned business coach, a mentor.
If you say so.
Yes, listen, the internet streets don't lie, right? The proof is in the pudding. We've definitely seen the fruits of your labor. I've been, a recipient of that for sure, a benefactor of that. And then also a podcast host and a pediatric cancer advocate.
Yeah.
You wear a lot of hats, and you're a wife and a mama. So we're going to go ahead and get into one of the most craziest things is that you just had a baby 3 months ago.
I did.
So if we count backwards, y'all, 3 months, we know we've been in COVID for how long?
Yeah.
This woman gave birth during COVID. So tell us what your pregnancy was like, what made it unique outside of giving birth during COVID, and what you're up to now as a mama.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 13-year-old who is London, and she is my daughter who had cancer. So there's that whole story that we'll touch on. But then I have a son who's going to be 8, and then I have a new baby. And I'm in my 40s. So it's an interesting space to be in right now in my life. It's not one that I had planned. And so having a baby in your 40s is energy draining. And then having a baby during COVID is quite interesting in itself. But the overall pregnancy and all of that was pretty good. But like I said, it wasn't planned. And because I'm, what do they call it? Geriatric. That's what they call you for a woman if you're over 35. That comes with a whole bunch of stuff when you're pregnant. And so, yeah, the journey was a little out of the norm and I wasn't prepared. But we're here now and she's a beautiful 3-month-old and I wouldn't change it for the world. So.
Yes, she is so juicy and so cute. So let's talk about a couple different things because we talk about, in business, we think, and even in life in general, we just think we have to have everything mapped out. We have to have everything planned. And then when we get these hiccups or these, some people call them hiccups, some people call them curveballs, some people call them unexpected surprises, which, by the way, I don't know what is in the water during this whole coronavirus pandemic, but it's a lot of folks who have gotten pregnant. A lot of my friends are pregnant.
I was already pregnant before, so
yeah. That's true. Yes, you were. I just had the baby of like, I didn't plan it, and I hate that word geriatric. Like,
I know that we could. That's a whole other topic, but whatever.
Because I had my son, my youngest, at 34, and I was considered geriatric. So I mean, for the medical field to like come up with a different name, call it seasoned, vintage.
I need the medical field to do a lot of things, but that would be great. A great start.
So, what was your thought? Like, how did you feel sick? Like, what was that whole process like of just like, you know what? Oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. We're here. This is what we're dealing with. You already have a lot on your plate. And then coming into the beginning of this year and all of the crazy things that have happened. And then realizing, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a baby during this time. What were you dealing with emotionally? Like, what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had just gotten off of the time of my daughter being in remission. So this all happened right after that. And yeah, so that in itself was a little, oh my gosh, what are we doing? But then, and I'm going to just be really honest with all of it. So then when I, got pregnant with my daughter, they actually, thought she had, Turner syndrome, which is, it's just, there's a lot of, things that are not good about that syndrome. And the first 16 weeks of my pregnancy, I couldn't tell anybody because we didn't know what was going to happen. And so the whole beginning of my pregnancy was really like stressful. And after just coming off of my daughter being in remission, I mean, there was a lot of emotions that my therapist was hearing from me a lot. Let's just say that. I think, having a baby, I had my first baby when I was 30. I had my son when I was 35. And then I had my daughter Lavender just 3 months ago, and I'll be 43. So being a mom at those different stages is very different. But then with this one, with all of, it felt like I had just went through all the trauma, and it felt like the trauma I didn't even get to process the other trauma really before new trauma was happening. And so yeah, that wasn't the most fun way to start your pregnancy, but actually found out that the test was wrong, and actually there was nothing wrong with her. So,
and she's here, and she's healthy, and she's healthy, beautiful. She's absolutely adorable, and her name fits her so well.
Yeah, her name's Lavender. So.
So you have to make sure that you check Heather out on social media, and we'll share at the end of the episode where you can do that, how you can follow her. But you will see a picture of Miss Princess Lavender, and she is the absolute cutest. We are going to get into a lot, obviously, with your personal life, but we're going to talk a lot about your business too, and how you got started and where you are today and just the climate that we're in. So talk to us about, how do you go from being an attorney, a practicing attorney, to having a wedding planning event company, to now a business coach and mentor?
No, that's a great question, because that doesn't seem logical, right? But for me, I grew up always wanting to be an entrepreneur. I just thought I was going to own a law firm. And I don't know, I think I grew up in a time where with my family, I should say, for me personally, my father was like, you're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Like, that was the thing. It was like, he didn't go to college. I was going to be the first one to go to college. And so it just became the thing. And so I think, and I look back and I go, okay, I think that was actually like programmed in my head that you were going to do one of those. And so I just chose to be a lawyer. And so I went to business school, graduated, and then I went to law school. And the first year of law school, my first week of law school, my grandmother passed away. My second year of law school, the first week, my uncle passed away of cancer. And the third year of law school, my dad, who at the time was 44 years old, passed away. And then a month later was September 11th. So law school in itself was quite interesting. And it was trauma-filled as well. And so because of that, it really, when my father passed away, I was like, is this really what I want to do? I loved the education that I got through law, but I did not know if I wanted to practice it. And so I went back home to be with my family after my dad passed away, because I was in Oklahoma City. I'm from Indiana originally. And then I decided, okay, I want to do this. And then after I did it for about a year, I knew it wasn't for me. The practice of it was very different than the education for me. And so I wanted to go completely different. And that's when I started my event planning company at the age of 24. And then I grew that to, I had a business partner, and we had team members, and I did that for 11 years. I never thought I would be a wedding planner, first of all, but then I never thought that I would be in it for 11 years. But what I always say is the dots connect somehow. And so for me, I wanted to be a lawyer, I thought, an attorney. But then really what came from that is that I just wanted to own my own business. And I didn't want to work for someone else. And so that connected the dot to becoming, owning my own event planning company. And then that connected the dot to like starting coaching. I started coaching while I was a wedding planner. Actually, I started coaching people in the wedding and event industry because someone asked me, who is actually a really good friend of mine now. We've known each other forever. And that started the journey of my coaching. So it's these little things that connected me that I never planned, but I now can look back and go, oh, I see how we got here. So
how did you, one, that's a lot, a lot to carry and back to back, like simultaneously and year after year. And so the fact that you even had the wherewithal to just pause and say, wait a minute, like I feel completely out of alignment, and to make a decision to do something for yourself differently is so commendable. But, when we lose someone, especially, if it's a parent or, a guardian or someone really close to us that has been influential in our lives, right? A lot of times we feel like the things that we do going forward need to honor that person and the influence that they've had in our life. So with your dad being the person who was kind of like, you're going to go to school, you're going to become either a doctor or a lawyer. And then you go through this grieving process of losing your dad. And still, even though you were in your 20s, they're still formidable years, right?
Oh yeah.
And then you decide, like, after all of that, this is not what I want to do. How did you reconcile making that shift, because sometimes we'll feel like, oh, if I'm not doing what they wanted me to do, then I'm
Yeah.
somehow disappointing them or letting them down. So what was that thing for you that clicked to say, you know what, although I'm shifting and doing something different, there's still this sense of honoring your dad and his legacy and his memory and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think for me, because I grew up in a really large family. So my dad was one of 11. So I had like 70 cousins on one side. We would get together every Sunday at my grandmother's house. And so I grew up with that community, but I also grew up losing people quite often because having such a large family and a big group of friends and family. So I think for me, I kept seeing like how precious life was. And I started seeing that when my grandparents passed away when I was young. And it just kept happening in my life and big traumatic moments. My uncle passed away of liver disease, and I like saw him watched him like take his last breath in the hospital, traumatizing. But my cousin, there was a lot of cancer. One of my family members had AIDS. Like, it was just a lot growing up. And so for me, I think when my father passed away, it really, well, not right away, because I think I just went on autopilot and was just like, okay, let's do this. I'm going to be strong and I'm going to get through this. But I think it made me aware how precious life is. And then, like I said, September 11th happened right after my father passed away. And so I kept hearing this in my head, like, life is precious, life is precious. Do what makes you happy and what you want to do, because you don't know how long you have. And so my dad passing away really, even though it was something that he wanted from me, I think really what he wanted from me was to just be happy and do what I wanted to do. And I think him saying, be an attorney, be a doctor, be a lawyer, was, you're going to get an education, and that's what I aspire for you to do. But I think it really was about just doing what you're meant for and what you love doing, and love the people around you. I learned that from him too. Love everyone around you. And so when that all happened, it wasn't easy for me, but I just knew that I did not want to move forward with law. There's nothing against it. That's your thing. You love it. That's great. But for me, it just wasn't how I wanted to move forward. But I did meet my husband in law school, and we've been married for 16 years. So like a lot of magical things came out of all that too.
And that's beautiful, right? That's the beauty of everything, is when there's something great that comes out of it. It's whether it's a lesson learned, a new relationship formed, there's something that is beautiful and tangible that comes out of that shift. And what a beautiful way to really honor the life of your father. And because sometimes, like I said, some people get paralyzed by the idea of doing something different, because while their loved one is no longer here, they're still racking with this belief or idea that they're disappointing them in some way,
Yeah.
right? And then a lot of times we make decisions, fear-based decisions, or I've got to honor their legacy and what they wanted me to do, and then we end up living these lives and being in these positions that are just not fulfilling. So kudos to you for just really sitting with yourself and saying, you know what, I've got to be happy, and I can be happy and still honor my dad's life and his legacy by
And I
doing
think
what
for
makes
me, it was finishing law school was the honoring his legacy, because education was so important to him, because he never got it. So, they weren't able to afford to go to college. And so for me, that was the legacy that I was, and that was how I was honoring him, by staying in law school after all that happened and really going, okay, this is how I'm going to honor him. And I know he'd be proud of me, but I wouldn't be honoring him really if I didn't do what I knew that I was meant to do and where my heart was leading me. So
yeah, that's incredible. And Oh gosh, so much, because you know my story with my dad.
Yes.
So just
Yes, we have a lot of a lot of
yes.
similar stories.
We do, we do. So let's talk about, because that's a big shift, even like going from being an attorney to being a wedding planner and having an event planning company. What was it that made you go into that specifically, like that industry?
So everyone always asks me this. Really, I really wanted to get as far away from law as possible because I felt so confined. I felt like I wasn't able to be me. I was, but in every part of it, I didn't like wearing the suit to work. I was working so much. When I put my heart in something, when I do something, I do it to the fullest. And so I was working 70, 80-hour weeks. And I thought to myself, I want a family and I don't see how I can do this. And not to say that you can't do it, I just didn't see it for me. And so I thought, what can I do that's really creative? Because I have this analytical, legal side, but I also I love creativity. I love all things like just crafts, but I also love just thinking up and building new ideas and big visions and stuff. And so I said, what can I do? And I actually was planning my own wedding. I think a lot of wedding planners and event planners are like this. You're planning your own stuff. You're like, why not? I'll do it. And I had nothing. I had no background in it. We moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I had no family or friends here. I had nobody that was going to help me do it. And I just said, okay, I'm going to do this. I bought like a $400 computer and that was it. Like I didn't have anything else. And I just said, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure it out because I've figured it out a million times before. So I know how to do that. I know how to figure things out, and I know how to come up with solutions. And so that's what I did. And it was fun. It was so much different from what I had done in the legal world and in the business background, business management background. So.
And then, like you said, the coaching part kind of came naturally for you because it's, you have people like, how did you do this? Or how can I do this? Especially when people start to see you have some level of success, it's, success leaves clues. And so that's why coaches and consultants and strategists exist, right? It's because they've achieved some level of success to help and support people. And I love, just watching over the years, seeing how your business has evolved. And, we talk about this every week about the whole idea behind the beauty behind the brand. And that's that oftentimes we see so many people, especially women, who are successful. And for the woman who is in this seat over here, watching the woman that's kind of in the spotlight or, has some type of notoriety, and we see their success, they're on, everyone's stage, they're on podcasts, they're in the media. And we, sometimes they'll get detached and just think like it's not possible for them, or they have so much going on in their lives. How could they ever, right? Who's going to listen to them? And so I feel like you're a true testament to like just demolishing that belief or that idea that everything has to be perfect in order to win and be successful in business. And so we're going to talk about, yes, the wins, but we're also going to talk about more of the things that you've had to go through, like even in this season, in the last 3 or 4 years, and being at the height of your coaching career, so to speak, and then getting hit with another whammy and how you've had to deal with that. So let's talk about London. Okay. How old is London today?
She's 13 now.
She's the same age as my baby.
Yeah.
And what happened 3 years ago?
So when she was 9, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Neuroblastoma is the name of the cancer, but yeah. So she, I still get a little choked up about it because it's been ongoing for the last 3 years. And we just had scans today, actually. So we find out and see if the cancer comes back. So you always have that. But she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, neuroblastoma. And people always ask us, well, how did you know? How did you find out? And the way that we found out was that she was having some back pain. She had gone to a birthday party. They were at a park. She had fell off of like a swing or something. And when she fell, she kind of like hurt her back. And so we were like, okay, well, it's just probably because you fell, right? And like, we didn't think much about it. But then she got this little bump on her jaw. Mm-hmm. And I actually was supposed to go attend a conference in Palm Springs.
I remember that.
And so I went, but we went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, I don't think it's anything. It's common for people to get like their salivary gland kind of backed up. And so they tell you to suck on candy, like sour candy, to get rid of it. And so we did that. And then I came back, and it had grown on her cheek. And of course, mom guilt sets in, and then we're panicking because I'm like, what is going on? So we take her, and the doctor's like, I'd really like to get some scans. And I was, this is a whole new world for me. So I said, okay, I didn't know what was happening. And then we got the results back the next day. And I just remember I was outside of my house, and I was outside with the kids, and I got the phone call, and the doctor said, you need to take London immediately to Phoenix Children's Hospital. She has cancer. And that moment, which I'll never forget, I just broke down, called my husband, called my family, said, this is what's happening. We took her in, and the news just got worse. Not only did she have cancer, but it was stage 4 cancer. And I remember walking down the hall with my husband holding hands, going to the room that we were going to be told what was happening with her, and they were going to show us, what it looks like inside of her. And I remember walking down the hallway with my husband Cole, and just saying, we've got this, like, no matter what, we've got this. I could cry now about it. But, and then when we went in the room, they put her, scan up on the screen, and her whole body lit up. And so it was covering all of her body. It was in her skull. It was arms, legs, in her back, it was everywhere. Mm-hmm. And, we were floored. We had no idea. So then you have the guilt of like, oh my gosh, how long has this been there? As a parent, like, why did we not know this? Mm-hmm. And of course, both of us my husband's an attorney. So we're the analytical, like, okay, what's the solution? Like, what do we need to do? What can we do? And so she started chemotherapy that week, like a few days afterwards, and our world was just completely overturned. My son was 4 at the time, so she was 9, he was 4, obviously didn't have lavender yet. It rocked our world in every single way, financially, emotionally, physically. We started on this journey. So she had to go through, I think, like 9 rounds of chemotherapy. This was the first time. Mm-hmm. Then she had to have 2 surgeries, one resection of a tumor that was a softball-sized tumor. From her back, the chemo actually took away the tumor there was a tumor that was growing in her cheek. So that was that. But the chemotherapy took that away. Then she had the surgery. Then she had radiation. And then she had 2 stem cell transplants, which was just, there's no even words to explain what it was like for her, what it was like for us as parents. And then she went through 6 months of immunotherapy, which is basically chemotherapy again. And then she was in remission for 8 months. So she got clear. Mm-hmm. And then it all started again. We got news 8 months in after remission that she had relapsed. And so she just became clear in December of 2019. Mm-hmm. And we just hit the 6-month mark of being in remission again. So all the anxiety is there of Is it going to happen again? You hope not. And I don't think that way. I don't, I will say when we were going through it, the thing that kept me going was just positivity and gratitude. And because I could not go there, I could not go to the place of what if this happens? Mm-hmm. So we didn't even allow ourselves. We wouldn't even allow people to say it or talk about it in the room. And my daughter London will tell you that. She'll tell you that the positive and the gratitude helped her get through it, because she saw us. She's told us this. She saw us as parents saying, you know what? We're not letting that come in and wreck us. We can control this part of it. We can't control the cancer. We can't control how it's growing or what it's doing, but we can take action and really hold that space for her to let no one in that's going to impact her in a negative way.
And people don't understand that is a huge part of the healing process, like being very keenly aware of your thoughts, your surroundings, who you allow into your space, and what they're speaking, because you can't you cannot afford to have anyone speaking the opposite of what you're believing and speaking.
Yeah. So we were really adamant about not allowing that in. And even when, of course, we didn't mean that the doctors were telling us the truth. We said, tell us the truth. Tell us what's really happening, and being both attorneys and analytical, we did tons of research on what this meant, because neuroblastoma, her cancer, is not, it's an interesting cancer. It can come back rapidly. It's not treated like other cancers, that a lot of the other kids on the floor had. And so we battled it for three years. And the hard part is that it could easily come back again. And it can sneakily come back. And so you don't know. So when she has aches and says, my knees are hurting, Mom, there's always that voice in the back of my head.
Yeah. It's that flashback to before.
Yeah.
So how do you, what do you say to, because there's so many lessons in what you've just shared with us. And I know, like you as parents, we don't ever want to like panic or overreact to every bump and bruise and fall that our kids have. But what do you say to the parents who have children, and when their children come to them and say something is bothering me because of what you've gone through, and finding that balance, if you will? What do you say to the parents who have children, especially younger children, who, are expressing how they feel about something, or, when something is going on? What do you say to them about how they handle that?
How we handle it is with honesty. We don't sugarcoat things. We don't. Now, granted, I think there's ways to tell children at different ages, talk about things, but we've never been a family to not talk about it. So there's really nothing in our family that we don't talk about. We're open with our kids. And I think as parents, London actually just said this today. She said, she was talking about what, her generation and what they are doing on TikTok and the movements they're having. And she was like, Mom, I'm proud of that. She's like, but it's interesting, because I think that a lot of times adults don't think that we understand, or we have a voice, or that we can make a change. And that like sat with me. I sat with that for a little bit, and I responded, and I said, no, you're right, London. You can make a difference. And a lot of times I think, especially in our generation, it was, your parents are right. Don't question them. Don't ask. No, you're going to do what we say. And it's interesting to me that maybe we need to shed that, a lot more, and listen to not only be the ones telling, and maybe listen more to what our children are saying, because I think they speak truth. I think they are very knowledgeable. way beyond what we think they are sometimes. And I think we could all be better humans if we listen to our children more.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And
I
trusting them more, like just because
Yeah.
they're still growing and have to live and experience some things. I think just like a woman knows her body, a man
Mhm.
knows her body, children know,
Yeah.
instinctively when something isn't right, even if they don't know what that thing is.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you
And
have
so
sometimes
having
kids
the
make
conversations.
yeah, just having those conversations because you'll get to know, you'll be able to identify like when your kid is just like, oh, my head is hurting because I don't want to go to school
Right.
versus something, potentially more serious or that requires attention. Doesn't even necessarily mean that it's super serious, but it requires attention. And so,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that part with us and just
Yeah.
being totally transparent, even about having that mommy guilt.
Oh, yeah.
I remember like vividly that time and I all the
Yeah.
way down to you being in Palm Springs because I think we had even talked like, gosh, can I get to you? Because we wanted to
Yeah.
finally meet, right?
Yeah.
And just getting back home and receiving that news, like it could have just completely debilitated you. And I'm sure, yes, you had to go through a process
Yeah.
to even get to where you are today. But the idea of like you didn't do anything wrong. And a
No.
lot of times, as parents and especially moms, we do carry this guilt of, oh my gosh, I didn't help my kid with this project, or I didn't cook
Yeah.
dinner until 9 o'clock tonight. All the different things that we deal with. And so, what do you say to the moms and dads? Because dads
Yeah,
feel
because
it
dads
too.
go through it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because dads go through it too. Whether you're the only parent or you're co-parenting, you go through the stuff and we go through it in different ways, right? Just as humans, we go through things differently. And so we have to be aware of the nuances of that. And that we all are humans, but we are all different and we have different emotions and we deal with things differently. And so I think just as a mom, I would tell other mamas that you know drop the guilt as much as you can. I just think we're so hard on ourselves. My husband tells me all the time, you're the hardest person on yourself. Like you're so hard on yourself. You criticize and question yourself harder than anyone else does. And I think he's probably right on that. And it's because I think as a mom, and I know him as a father, as a parent, we don't want to get it wrong. But the problem with that is that there's no wrong or right. It just is. And so we have to do the best we can, but we have to be okay with the best that we can and not try to be something that we're not. And so that, I think every day though, I go, okay, I'm so analytical about things. So I always question, okay, how is this going to affect them? How is this going to affect London down the road? How is this going to affect my son? How is this going to affect my daughter, Lavender, that didn't go through it with us? But I do that with everything. So it's not just with the cancer journey. It's just, I think being a parent, you have that. You want to protect them. They are the little humans. And I think there is that part of protection that we can do, but I think that we have to also let them be humans and let them be beings of their own. And I think I learned too, like what my dad wanted me to be, that's not really what I wanted, because that had been pushed in my head for so long, that you're going to be an attorney or a doctor, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but that's not really where my specialty, like that's not what I was good at. And so anyway, I think we have to just, I don't know, I think it comes back to being human beings. We have to pay attention and be aware of everyone and know that we're all different and we react different and we have different feelings. And so when my husband went through it, I'm a crier. I'm an emotional being. I'm the helper. I will help everyone else before I help myself. And he is I have it together, but it keeps it all on the inside. And so when you have parents that act differently in that. You have to, we were a good team. We still are an amazing team in that way. But I think that, you have to be aware of that and not think that, I think the problem with, the world today is we think everyone needs to be exactly like us and they need to think exactly like us. And yes, I think we all need to have certain values, but we also have to celebrate our differences too. So, and that comes with everything, that's not just, I just think that about everything that I do, like celebrate the differences, but celebrate the similarities too of human beings. So
I love that. Let's talk about, like, these conversations get so good and so deep, and there's so many gems. Uh-oh, my camera just went off. Can you hear me?
I can still hear you.
That's interesting.
You're back. You're back. We're good.
All right, I'm back.
Once again, this is life, y'all. So we just go with it.
Yes, life throws you something. It gives you lemons. You make some good old Southern lemonade. I mean, it is. So today, like we've talked about London's journey, and then what happened today? Where have you been today?
Yeah, so all day today we were at the hospital. Every 3 months she has to do scans. So this will be 6 months out from her last remission and being in remission. Mm-hmm. And so we had to go to the hospital during COVID, and Arizona is like one of the top. Yeah. We have the most COVID cases right now, apparently. So it's intense anyway. But we had to go to the hospital today to get her scans. So she has to get the scans, and we should be getting results tomorrow. So there's always anxiety around that. I think when you go through anything traumatic, it's all different. I don't want to say one trauma is the same as another, but when you go through traumatic events, you have to go through the process. Like, you have to process all of the things that are happening, and people think that that's going to happen like right away. Right. And what I've realized with just everything with death, with things that are just going on in the world. Everyone wants it to happen overnight. We're going to make this change overnight, and all of a sudden we're going to feel a completely different way. And I think that what I've learned is that you have to allow yourself to process and allow yourself time to go, okay, let me think about this. What do I actually think about this? Not what so-and-so or so-and-so are telling me, but what do I feel about this? What do I feel about it? It's in my heart. And so for when all this happened with London, people said, I can't believe that you're not more, like, you're so positive and all this is happening and you just keep being positive and, don't you cry? And they almost were, it was like, I wasn't doing it right. Why aren't you crying? Why don't you see more of you? And then some people were getting angry. Like, do you know what she's going through? Like, do you know that yes, I've been there where she's almost lost her life multiple times. I don't need you to remind me. I lived it. And I think that's with a lot of trauma. We've lived trauma. I don't need you to tell me how to feel about it. Yeah. I don't need you to tell me how I should react to it. I get to do that. And I think as humans, we want to, I don't know. I just remember feeling that. And I think that you can parallel that to today, right now, where people are telling, I'm sure you've felt this. Yeah. You don't get to tell me how I feel. You don't get to tell me not to be angry. You don't get to tell me that I can't cry or I can't feel a certain way or I can't have these emotions.
Or that I can't share my personal feelings on my business account because it's not professional, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to talk about, before we end already, gosh, how being a mama, being a wife and a mama, but being a mama to a child who has literally been fighting for her life.
Yeah.
And like you said, London was 9 years old.
Yeah.
if you're a parent, or even if you have nieces and nephews or godchildren, or, some child in your life at 9 years old, they're just having fun. Like,
Yeah.
your childhood gets disrupted.
Oh yeah.
How has that helped you to be a better businesswoman,
Mm-hmm.
a coach, and then also an advocate? Because you're not only an advocate for your child, who is a pediatric cancer survivor and thriver, but you're also an advocate and voice for other children, some of whom your family has been right by their side and comforting them when they've lost, their battle with cancer. But then also you're an advocate and a voice for women like me and so many other women in your community. And this is what I want our viewers to know. Heather is not, an advocate for Black women because it's the trendy thing to do right now. She's not using her platform or her voice to spotlight Black women and women of color in her community and in her business. It's something that she's been doing for years. So she literally has been walking the walk and talking the talk, and being very intentional and focused and unapologetic about using her space to speak against racial injustice and all the disparities that plague the Black community, and more specifically the women in her community and women of color. So what have you learned from your fight and your journey with your daughter and cancer that has helped to prepare you for where you are today and what we're facing in this world?
Yeah. So I actually said this on Instagram today on my stories. I said all of this, and I think just life in general, like all the things that have happened have given me perspective, have given me empathy, have allowed me to, I never say I'm going to step into someone's shoes knowing what they feel, but it allows me to be empathetic to them. And I think I'm a better listener because of it. You have to listen and take time to learn. So I think all those things, like when I was going through all this stuff with London with cancer, I had to listen to what the doctors and the nurses were saying. I had to learn it because I did not know it. I didn't know any of it. I had to learn it all. And I think today, in today's world, with the racial injustices, I think those same things apply. Don't act like as a white woman or a white man. Please don't do that. But I think be empathetic. We're humans, and I feel like if we treated each other as human beings. I had this, and London and I had this conversation on the way back home in the car. These conversations are crucial conversations that we have to have with our children. There's, some people were learning things for the first time. But then, we also, it's not just about us as adults. It's about the humans that are, we're raising in this world. And so, yeah, I think I always have perspective. I always look at, okay, not just how not just how everybody says it is, but actually looking and seeing from my own eyes what is really going on. And so, for instance, I've told my kids flat out, we don't say all lives matter. No, we don't say that. We say Black Lives Matter because they do. And so I think it goes back to, again, I think we as adults make it so much harder than it needs to be. And I know that there's history and there's a lot that has gotten us here, but I have so much hope for us as human beings, as humanity, that we can do better, that we will do better. And I think that starts with having these, really difficult, hard conversations, not only with our children, but with our families, and being open about it and being uncomfortable with how you feel and not getting in your feelings about it. Not for white people, not making it about you. just really listening to what others have to say and allowing them to be who they are. I don't know. I always tell London, my daughter and my kids, I don't know. I feel like it should be so much easier and we make it so much harder.
Yeah. So what do you say to your white colleagues,
Mhm.
friends, neighbors, family